Season 2 of Reacher has come to an end, and it's safe to say that the finale was definitely an explosive one. Following on from the penultimate episode where we saw that Reacher was taken in by Langston and the New Age technology folk as their prisoner, I think we all knew that things weren't going to go as they planned. With AM finally coming face to face with Reacher, some major plot holes in the finale, and Langston getting what could only be described as poetic justice. Let's recap, break down, and explain all that there was to take away from the finale. Here is Reacher Season 2 Episode 8, Ending Explained. Just to let you know, this video will contain spoilers. The ending explained. With Reacher being taken in by Langston, we saw that he came face to face with him for the first time. This resulted in an epic fight scene where Reacher took out all of Langston's men with his hands tied behind his back, living up to the famous quote that often gets said. But after doing so, Reacher was met with a barrel looking directly at him, as Langston realized that Neely wasn't in fact killed at the hospital. Whilst Reacher was being interrogated, Neely was working her way through security and making sure that it was clear so that the SILs that Lavoie was letting help out Reacher could arrive and assist in taking out the New Age technology guys. With Reacher not giving up any information on Neely, Langston was getting frustrated and ended up ordering his men to put Dixon and O'Donnell on the chopper so that they could meet the same fate as what everybody else on the 110th did, being thrown out of a helicopter. But before they did, Langston revealed that Swan was in fact dead. I thought there was going to be some kind of twist where Swan was actually in on it, something that I would have actually liked. But Swan refused to take the money that Langston offered, and he ended up being killed by them. Langston was able to sign off with Swan's name due to the fact that he kept Swan's finger for his fingerprint and also his eyeball so that his retina scan would work. Langston mentioned how Swan wouldn't give up and change sides, and that he was so determined to get their plans to fail, which ultimately resulted in his death. Langston said to Reacher, "Did you teach him that? Was this your fault?" This tied into the thought process that Reacher had all throughout the season, where he'd been blaming himself for everything that had happened, and believed that it was his fault that the 110th members were dying due to bringing them all together whilst in the military. Whilst Reacher was being interrogated and hit by Langston, the funny thing about it was the fact that Reacher might have looked like he was in pain, but he was taking it like a champ, and Langston was standing there holding his hand because of how much pain it was causing him when hitting Reacher, showing just how tough Reacher actually is. Once Lavoie's team arrived at the facility, we saw that the lights went out, and by using the pin in Reacher's shoe that he put there in the previous episode, he was able to get out of the handcuffs that he was in and contribute to the fight. We saw an epic showdown taking place, and although it was good, I don't think it was a touch on the warehouse fight scene from the end of Season 1. That was one where I truly felt like there could have been casualties on Reacher's side. But this was one where it just felt like we kind of knew that Reacher would dominate as there weren't that many people there. Neely caused a distraction to be able to get everybody in by also pretending to be the kids that were playing their music from the car, tying back to the last episode where Reacher said that they gave him an idea, so replicating that was exactly that. Once Reacher had taken out everybody that was inside of the building with assistance, he chased after Langston, who was now in the helicopter, and Reacher had to grab onto the wheels as it was flying up in the air, where he eventually climbed in. I'm not gonna lie, but this is definitely the most unrealistic thing that we've seen in Reacher. Like, we've seen some things that don't quite make sense, and maybe you just go, well, it's Reacher. But this was some superhero stuff that he was doing. Climbing up into a helicopter whilst it's thousands of feet in the air, holding Dixon's weight in the cart that she was in with just one arm, letting it go and catching it like it was nothing. I don't know. I can go with unbelievable to a certain degree, but they're gonna make Reacher not feel human, which is something that I'm not really on board with. The beauty of the character is the fact that he's a highly trained and well-skilled fighter. Not that, but also with superhero strength. Maybe I'm looking into it too much. But anyway, after Dixon was saved and Langston's henchman was killed on the helicopter, we saw Reacher get his revenge by throwing Langston out of the chopper. Langston assumed that Reacher wanted to know the location of where he was meeting AM, and before Reacher threw him out, he quoted Dixon's famous line that she loves to say, and he said how assumptions kill. And then, poof, Langston was no more. I did wonder how they were going to find the meeting spot, but obviously the pilot knew where they were going. Once Reacher arrived at the engineer's house, we saw that AM arrived there, and after showing that he had no morals at all and said how he wasn't responsible for the deaths of the members of the 110th unit because he was only the middleman, he was executed in a way that felt a bit overkill for Reacher. It was almost like a firing squad. but I'm guessing it's maybe because they were acting on emotion over all of the deaths of their friends and the trouble that he caused. For me, this was a big miss with AM. He was made out to be this dark opposite of Reacher, a killer that went undetected, and he had a real ominous feel about him. But he was just wiped out in the blink of an eye. I thought he was going to be an overarching villain that went into season 3, so I was quite disappointed. And to be honest, I feel all of the small 2-minute sections that we got each week were pretty much a waste of time, because they amounted to absolutely nothing. Let's bear in mind, everything that I just mentioned happened in the first 20 minutes of the 40-minute finale, so there was still 20 minutes to go. Once AM was dealt with, Reacher and the gang went to the barn where the engineer, the pilot, and Lavoie's lone security were, but there was still a moment of double-crossing to come. Lavoie had secretly tasked the security team to kill Reacher and the rest of the 110th, as he didn't want there to be any witnesses of what happened. This was due to the fact that Senator Lavoie was involved with Little Wing, albeit whilst not knowing the full details of it, but Reacher was one step ahead and called in the authorities to arrest not only Lavoie, but also his security. Like in the first season of the show, we saw the conclusion getting wrapped up inside of a diner where the group were reminiscing over what happened. And this was where we also saw that they'd kept the $65 million that was there for the payment to Langston for the missiles and the chips. We saw that the money was used to help out the family members of the 110th unit that were no longer around. Plus, it was also used in a way that meant that Dixon wouldn't need to work for somebody again. Neely's father could have around-the-clock care, and O'Donnell's kids were set for life. And what did Reacher want? A new toothbrush. The only thing that he carries on himself. With the first episode showing us the 110th unit all together around a fire in the photo, this season concluded of a retaking of that photo. And although the numbers were smaller, the camaraderie and togetherness of the group that Reacher put together all of those years ago was still there for each other and still present when it was truly needed. With Reacher buying a yearly bus ticket, we saw him get on board the bus with no true destination. Maybe heading back to Margrave, or maybe heading to a new place where trouble will most likely follow him. But that's for season 3. We know that a season 3 is definitely on the way due to it being commissioned and greenlit already, so at least we know that Reacher's got at least another season in him. Overall review. Personally, I thought the finale was okay. I don't think it was incredible, and I definitely don't think it's a touch on season 1's finale, but it was still enjoyable to watch. I thought AM's demise was a bit of a shame, as I feel he was built up to be something that we never really got to see. We didn't even really see him getting repercussions for the murders that he committed or them getting pinned on him post-death. Plus, I also feel the flashbacks that we had all throughout the final episodes where it was leading to Reacher's boss potentially being corrupt amounted to nothing as well. So, I don't know, those things kind of bothered me. In terms of the action, as we always get with Reacher, there were some great moments that we saw unfolding. Reacher was totally badass and looked the strongest that we'd ever seen him. Like I said earlier, I wasn't really a fan of the helicopter stuff where he just came across as overpowered, but I can kind of look past it if it doesn't always happen. The cast definitely grew on me as the season went on, and I felt the camaraderie of the 110th and the care that they actually had for one another, something that was vital to this season. With season 3, I kind of hope that it goes back to more of a season 1 vibe. I liked the more intimate nature of it and not the nationwide scale that it had, so I kind of hope that we get that with Reacher season 3. I'd give season 2 maybe a 6 or 7 out of 10, but when comparing that to season 1, that could easily be an 8 or a 9 out of 10 for how good it was. So, there you have it, Reacher season 2 episode 8 ending explained. If you want to see more videos on Reacher, then click on the card in the top corner, or alternatively you can head over to my channel where you'll find them all. What did you think of the finale? Leave a comment down below, and don't forget to subscribe. I'll see you next time.